One, two, three, the lawn feed.
Welcome to the Lawn Feed Podcast. I am Andrew, the dad bod lawn, and with me is Chris Opitz Mow Time. Vince is doing God knows what, and you know what? It's just good to be talking with you today, Chris, if we're being frank here.
Shalom.
Yeah, shalom. We have an absolute barn burner of a topic to talk about because, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening to this, it is officially spring 2025, and that is something to celebrate.
Made it.
Spring is sprung, and quite frankly, I'm a little sprung myself just thinking about it. And
Just
so we're
woke
talking
everybody
about
up just in
spring.
case everyone was asleep.
Right, kind of like we kind of are right now, to be honest. We're a little tired tonight, but we're going to power through this and get you guys everything you need to know about spring, what to do, what not to do to get you kicked off for your season in 2025 here. But before we start talking about grass, we got to thank somebody.
Before we start talking about grass, we got to start talking about grass seed. So we got to thank our friends over at Twin City Seed for powering this episode and season of the Lawn Feed Podcast. Our friends over at Twin City Seed offers an elite quality of custom blends of grass seed to homeowners, turf professionals, and many more. Home to the all-new Resilience 2, Blue Resilience, which we all know, but they also have sneakily Blue Shadow, a brand new mix, and Rodeo, Texas Hybrid
Heyo.
mix, amongst a lot others, or many others. So go check them out with all of their blends. They ship over to, but we don't do seed. They do seed. Ship to all 50 states. Check them out at twincityseed.com and check out the banner at the top of the webpage for all of their current specials and offers, along with codes for free shipping and many more for your next seeding project, because that's coming up. We are
And
close.
We're going to hit on that a little bit tonight, too. So
Yeah.
exciting times.
It's been about, I don't know, a month and a half or so where you had texted, "Hey guys, I have a loss."
Right.
And we've had like just a bunch of guests on, and our tradition when we have guests is to have them do it. You've been sitting on a loss, dad's win and loss. So let's tee that up real quick, and let's see what you got to say.
A lawn feed tradition where we tap into who we are at heart. Dads! This is Dad's Wins and Losses, where we tap into our inner dad bod father figures and highlight some of the recent wins we've experienced as parents, and of course, vent about the embarrassing losses we take each and every day as dads.
I love you, Daddy.
Side note, before you give us our loss, I just realized I am drinking a beer called Decision Fatigue. It's the perfect choice for when you're tired of making choices. It's an easy drinking pale ale brewed with a tropical blend of Citra, Mosaic, and a word I can't pronounce, hops for whatever. Very fitting.
Who
Because
makes
you
that?
and I just, Uta Pills out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Uta
Okay.
Pills. Uta Pills. Fitting for, we need to give our listeners some context as to why Decision Fatigue is fitting. You and I, as well as Vince, went down to South Carolina
Mhm.
and just like had a guy's weekend, but like work guy's weekend type of
Mhm.
thing. And like it was back to back to back to back for like 48, 36 hours for reasons that you guys will find out later. But we like just got back and
Yeah.
we realized that we haven't filmed a podcast, and we were supposed to film a podcast. And we're like, we got to get to the listeners because they're so awesome.
And spring is here.
And spring is here. We can't like take a week off right now. That's like the worst decision that we could possibly make. But we don't like
Yeah.
to make decisions. So decision fatigue, very fitting. We are running on an empty.
And the plan was to do an in-person podcast in South Carolina when we were together, but we literally were so busy doing other things that we didn't have the time. That tells you how busy we are, because we always find time if we're together, because we're hardly ever together. But the
That's
goal this
true.
year is to bring you guys a lot more in-person podcasts and for us to get together and have a lot of fun, do some things. But let's get into the dad's wins and losses. We can start talking about some grass, eh?
Hey,
So, as Chris said, I've had something on my mind for almost 2 months now. And so here it is. My son is now completed learn to play hockey. He's 4 years old. About 2 months ago, this is about halfway through the program. It's at 4 p.m. on Sundays. We take him to this thing, okay? And he's 4. He naps some days. Usually when he has hockey, we have him nap because it's a lot of exercise. He's going to be exhausted. It's a lot, right? So we have him nap. We normally wake him up like at 3, leave the house by 3:20, get there 20 minutes early kind of thing. Well, one of those days, he was hard asleep, and we woke him up at 3:00. My wife did, and I'm in the bathroom kind of getting ready to take him. And she's like, "Hey, buddy, it's time to get up for hockey." And he just jumps up, all excited, jumps off of his bed, walks out in the hallway, walks right into the kitchen. And usually we have him grab a snack so that he can eat something on the drive, because it's like cutting in the dinner time almost. And so he goes right over to the corner hutch, because we don't really have a pantry per se in our house. We have like a corner hutch that we put food and snacks in. So he goes to get like a granola bar or something. My wife's like, "Oh, he's fetching a snack." She turns her back and starts doing something in the kitchen until she hears a very weird sound and turns around to find my son with his pants around his ankles, pissing all over the fruit snacks on the bottom shelf of our pantry. Turns out homeboy is not awake. He's sleepwalking, and he was like, just shut up out of bed and just went out there and was like, "I gotta go." And just, he thought he was in the bathroom apparently.
When nature calls, nature calls.
And, you know, as frustrating as that situation can be, we were laughing. It was so funny. But I feel terrible for him, because we must have woke him up like during his REM sleep. He must have been sleeping hard, because the whole way to hockey, he was just miserable, because we finally got him to wake up. And like, it was just not a good session that day. It was a rough one.
That's a throwaway.
And then the kicker is, like, I took him to hockey. My wife ended up, I don't know if she went that day or just came later. I don't recall. But she took all the fruit snacks in the basket and like rinsed everything off right away and cleaned everything, because we had like a whole Sam's Club like box of fruit snacks. Like, just put them in there. There was like 40 of them, right? We're not going to throw those away. So he gets home from hockey and he walks into the kitchen. He goes, "Hey, Mom, why are all the fruit snacks on the counter? Why are they all wet?" And we're like, "Buddy, you pissed all over the fruit snacks." And he looks at me and goes, "Daddy, I peed on the fruit snacks."
So he was completely oblivious to the situation.
He
no
didn't
clue.
even remember doing it. Not a clue.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was my loss that I've kind of had up my sleeve for quite a while now.
That's insane. At least
a
it
lot
wasn't
of people,
a number 2.
Right. A lot of people that I know personally have heard this story, but none of you have probably. So
that's amazing.
So I'm like, this better not be like him in college. You hear about those people that, like, you know, they're out drinking and they wake up in the middle of the night and they go in their closet, or they open a dresser drawer and they go. I'm like, this better not be him. You know,
just like, knock it out when you're like 4 years old, 3 years old.
Yeah. Get it out of your system, bud.
Yeah.
And then going back to the win, I, like you said, we just got back from it was a 3-night trip, pretty much gone for 4 days to South Carolina, and just coming home to see your family. You know, it's hard not to miss them, even though we were so busy. Yeah. Like, you stop and you think about them every once in a while, and it's like, I miss these little guys. And so it was cool to see them when I finally got home. They were so excited to see me. So I'm going to call that a win. And for once, they actually all wanted to like me to lay with them in bed to go for bedtime that night. Usually they all choose Mom, and then the loser gets stuck with me, but they all wanted me that night. So I was like, hey, cool.
Aww.
Yeah. So,
isn't that crazy? You are up to your eyeballs in like, it's not, frustration's not the word, but you're just like kind of ready to be done some days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exhaustion. There we go. Fatigue. And so like we had a snow day the day before we left. So like I was ready to just like ditch them, right? But then we get there and like, it's not even 10 hours of me getting to where we are. And I'm like, God dang it. I miss the kids. You know, just yesterday I was like up to my eyeballs with exhaustion. I'm just like, oh man, maybe we didn't do that as right. But then you get home and everything's better.
Yeah.
Run up to you.
There's just something about being home that just feels good too. We had a lot of fun. It's cool seeing new places, but like
a lot of fun.
It's I don't know, something about home. I think it's more like the people you're around, but yeah.
I think that's why they call it home sweet home, Andrew.
That makes sense.
It's nothing like going on your own toilet. Know what I mean?
Yeah. Amen to that.
Amen.
Definitely. There's nothing better than not going after Crisco's.
On that note, it is spring. Spring is
Yes.
sprung, sort
Mhm.
of. It may or may not feel like it. It's been. I'm going to speak in future tense, but people listening are hearing it in past tense. It's 72 degrees within the week of us doing this. I don't know if it's snowing yet. It's supposed to here, so we might. If it feel like spring, we might not. I have no idea. But regardless of where you are, lawn season is right around the corner, and we got some stuff to talk about. So I think this is just going to be kind of a natural conversation of like spring lawn prep. We did a warm season spring lawn prep with TJ about a month ago. That was a couple episodes ago. This is going to be more cool season transition zone focused on what to do and more importantly, what not to do in the spring, because there's a lot of right things you can do and there's a lot of wrong things that you can do, all of which we have learned from our experience. So we're going to talk about kind of some beginner, intermediate DIYer home tips, great for that group, new homeowners, and kind of go from there. So what do you want to talk about first?
I mean, I think the most basic thing is like something that you and I can do, even though it's like too cold to actually get out and do anything. And that is literally just walking your lawn and checking things out. You got damage, snow mold, thatch, thin spots, maybe spots animals got into. Maybe the snow plows push some rocks into your yard, just kind of be mindful of what's going on out there. And side note, check your hoses too, because when we were in South Carolina, my wife texted me and said, hey, our kids turned down the hose and I turned it off and it is dripping. Like I can't get it to stop. And so it turns out I have a faucet outside of my house that I need to replace because it's like dripping every 2 seconds right now. So check that kind of stuff out too. I mean, this is all kind of stuff you can just do while you're outside with the kids. Just like walk around the yard, kick a ball around with them, and just kind of look around. That's what I did that just today.
Isn't it crazy coming out of spring? Like in the fall, we like bundled up when it was like 45 degrees. In the spring, you're just out there wearing shorts because I was outside last night playing soccer with my kid, and I'm like, it's like 35 degrees, because it's the temperatures are, it's windy, but it's just like we're outside playing. The sun's still out. We got an extra hour. Mm-hmm. Man, it's great. It's great. But there's a lot of things that you can make a mistake on with everything you just said, right? Like with snow mold, you mentioned like snow mold and kind of doing some assessments and things like that. I've screwed up my lawn and making the mistake of like not letting it dry out when it's like too saturated. Because like obviously snow melts and then it's kind of like the mud season, right? So like being sure to not do too much damage walking around or letting your kids run around or dogs or whatever have you when it is kind of swampy, because that will cause you more issues. While cool season grasses are resilient and they'll probably come back, obviously, something to be mindful of for sure. So let it dry out for a little bit and do some assessments for sure. You mentioned cleanup, so like light rake, sticks, all that kind of stuff, but you also mentioned snow mold. You want to chat about that real quick?
Yeah, and that's one thing I actually noticed looking out in my yard is snow mold is not nearly as bad this year as it is in the past. There's ways to prevent snow mold by like doing a application of a fungicide like late fall, right before the snow hits. That kind of helps. I've always said I'm going to do that, and I didn't do it this year once again. But kind of looking around, it's very, very minimal this year. But yeah, so snow mold, the best way to kind of like eyeball it is just when you look across your lawn and you have like these patches that looks like it's super matted down. And when you get on top of it, the leaf blades, like it looks like they're kind of maybe a little bit slimy and sticky and stuck together. It's not just matted down grass, it's more. And once you start getting your fingers down in there or whatever, and you start moving it around, you notice like it's very, it's got a lot of moisture in there and it's kind of nasty looking. Moist, exactly. And these are those areas that you don't want to do it too soon. You want to let it dry out a little bit so that the top of it's kind of crunchy feeling. Like you tap it and almost like
crusty.
It's crusty. It's like a nice tortilla. You got
to let the moist part get crusty.
Yeah, basically. And then you lightly rake it out. And the whole point of this is snow mold most of the time will recover. Okay. And I think, Chris, your backyard a few years ago was a great example of this. You got hit really hard with it. And And on the other side of it, I actually had a decent amount of spots in my front yard a couple years ago that just didn't really recover. So I put down some grass seed. But at the same time, if I would have given it a little bit more time, it may have recovered better than I think. So
Sure.
patience is your friend here. And the whole idea of the raking is to just lightly stand up the grass blades and get airflow down into the soil to dry things out. Because oxygen and drying it out are going to help push things along a little bit here in the spring and get the grass growing and get the ground temperatures to warm up a little bit faster, get the sunlight down in there. And also, once you're able to start fertilizing, open up the canopy so that stuff can go down there as well. And along with water eventually. So
on that note, yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. You know, your yard, and you mentioned something. It's not as bad this year, at least where we live, Michigan, Minnesota, because it turns out you need snow to have snow mold,
which I had plenty of.
Yeah, you actually had a lot. We here did not. It used to snow here. It does not anymore. But like if you had a ton of snow and just a ton of moisture and then like fluctuation, I've noticed when it fluctuates. I don't know if there's any science or truth behind that, but I've noticed when the temperature fluctuates a lot. And more importantly, you've had a harsh entry to winter. That's when I've noticed it got really bad. And I don't know why. I'm sure someone will explain it to me. I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. But I've noticed, from my experience, the harsher the entry into winter, and then the more snow on top of that, and then the worse it is. That said,
part of the theory is a lot of the time when you get snow before the ground has had a chance to freeze.
Sure.
So the ground is not frozen, so you have like warmer grass underneath it, and the snow actually keeps it warmer and doesn't let it freeze. So that's why I have issues by my septic system out in my front yard a lot, is where I get the worst of it, because I have
Pooh Island,
that whole area and around it is the warmth of just the ground doesn't freeze as easily as other spots. So
makes total sense.
Yeah,
makes total sense. But the thing that I want people to hear is you're gonna be fine. Which brings me, I wasn't planning on talking about this. It's good you bring this up, because 2 years ago, you're right, we did get hit really hard, and I thought my lawn was like it was screwed. And then like a month later, it was fine. 2 rules coming into spring. Talk about them every year. Rule number 1 is to not panic, and rule number 2 is to refer to rule number 1, because spring is an active growing season for cool season grasses, meaning that you probably don't need to do as much as you think you do, which we're going to talk about. Where a lot of homeowners make a common mistake is to do too much, right? And you mentioned one important thing was when things start to kick off. And things start to kick off at one point, and it's something that everyone needs to be mindful of. And it's the soil temperature when it hits 50 to 55 degrees. That's when things start to actively start going. That's when your spring flush is going to start, kicking off. And it's not necessarily the first time that it hits 55 degrees, while things might seem like that is when things are going to kick off. But the soil temperature, 5-day average or so, a couple inches down, 50 to 55 degrees, that's when your season is basically, that's when the green light flashes. After about a week or 2 of patio beers, basically. The other thing you can look for is if you don't have like a meat thermometer or a soil, gauge or something like that you can stick in the ground. You can go to Greencast online. We talked about that when we were talking with TJ. Or it's when all the forsythias bloom. Those yellow flowers in the bushes start to go. Birds start chirping like crazy, all that stuff. Like, you'll know, right? Look for the green up. It's coming. So...
And I think along those same lines, while we're kind of talking about the whole raking and, cleaning up debris stuff, like the other thing, like you said, don't panic, right? Like, be patient. Yeah. You might want to feel like, some people feel like they maybe want to dethatch in the spring. And while it's like not necessarily the best thing to do early spring, like you want to wait until the grass is actively growing, because if you dethatch and your lawn is dormant, you're just going to tear up everything. It's not just going to be healthy grass, your dead grass. It's going to be healthy grass as well. So you need to have the grass be happy for a little bit before you do any of that dethatching, if you choose to do any of that in the spring. So,
Which you totally can. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
spring, it's an active growing season. Spring and fall are totally fine to do that. To your point, just wait till the green up happens.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, don't be like, oh my gosh, everything looks so nasty and matted down. I need to get all this up. Like, don't rake it too aggressively. Don't hit it with a power rake or a dethatcher. Wait until it's actively growing, it greens up, you've mowed a couple times before you even consider being aggressive with it.
Speaking of mowing, when do you kick things off with the lawnmower?
I mean, there's a couple of different theories, right? Like you can do like your charity mows where you can go out there with the mower and pick up some leaves and debris, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you also need to make sure the ground is dry. You don't want to be out there, especially with a heavy mower. If you have like a lawn tractor or a zero turn, you don't want to be leaving any ruts in wet grass. So make sure the ground has had a chance to dry out. Ideally, the grass is growing and you need to mow it, right? Most of us put the lawn to bed at a shorter length, a little bit shorter than what we normally keep it at. So wait till it gets to that point where it needs to be cut at your normal mowing height and then go after it. And that's kind of when I start. How about you?
Yeah, no, it's usually a couple. I don't know if it's a couple days, It's probably a week or two after that soil temperature gets to where it needs to go. It's obviously dependent on moisture, right? We're kind of borderline in a drought right now because we haven't had any like moisture, right? So your soil temperatures might be there for a little bit, but then the moisture's not there to do anything with it, right? So it's
Right.
you kind of have to have that recipe for it to grow. But yeah, I mean, I usually, what you just said, I usually keep it at about 2.5 inches, and then in the back and the front, I keep it obviously a little bit short with the reel mowing and stuff like that. But the 1/3 rule, whether you live by it or not, is always good to have mindful in the spring, or during active growing seasons. Wait for it to get to that point, kind of know where you want to keep it, and then kind of do the math on that. And 1/3 rule, if this is a new term for you, you don't ever want to really try to cut off more than 1/3 of that tip of the grass blade in any single mow, to risk any unnecessary damage to the plant, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Again, whether you live by that or not, that's kind of the rule. And yeah, so it's around that 3-inch mark is probably when I'll go out. But I also am obsessed with grass, so yeah, I'm probably going to go out there before then.
And do a little charity mow and pick it up,
just to fire it up, get
just
the
in
kids
case
going,
there's like 3 longer grass blades than the rest,
you
they're
gotta
going to get
those.
cut.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so you're talking about the 1/3 rule. That also is a good reminder not to go out and scalp your lawn. Cool season grass does not like to be scalped, especially if tall fescue is involved. You can damage the crown of the plant and you can cause permanent damage and actually kill some grass. So it's not warm season grass. Warm season grass, once it starts to get hotter, it wants to be scalped down. It likes it rough. Not so much cool season grass. Let it wake up on its own. And this is not something you need to go out there and try to shock this system and say, perfect example. We woke my son up out of a dead sleep and things didn't go well. Right? Like it's the same kind of concept. You don't want your lawn pissing all over the place. I don't know. You know what I mean? But
it's a fantastic analogy.
It is
fantastic analogy. It's honestly a great transition.
It is
because you don't want to, purposely wake your lawn up when you don't need to. Hey guys, if you get anything from this episode, stop trying to wake your grass up by dumping a whole bunch of fertilizer onto it. For the love of God. I see people, and you're going to see this is not throwing any shade to anybody. There are going to be creators that you are going to come across on your TikTok feed, on your YouTubes, on whatever, that are going to tell you to just like dump a whole bunch of fertilizer to wake it up. No, you do not need to do that. There's a whole bunch of science that people a whole lot smarter than I will go and tell you the reasons why. But the ones that I care about is it's not actually getting picked up by a dormant plant. It's going straight into the soil. It's going straight into your waterways, and it's leaching right out of there. and your plant's never going to see it
Right.
for the most part. High level synopsis, that's basically the risk. On top of burning the hell out of your lawn, right? Should it pick it up? That said, spring is an active growing cycle for cool season grasses. Said that earlier, going to say it again, probably going to say it more times because not enough people do it. And it's one of the biggest common mistakes that I see homeowners make, that we see homeowners make in the spring, is just kind of throwing her down, dumping everything, and trying to quote unquote wake it up. You do not need anywhere near 1 pound of nitrogen in one single dose in the spring. And if you're doing that, you're doing it wrong.
You don't wake up in the morning and go straight Kobayashi on a whole 8-course breakfast, right? Like some people are just like, I hardly want to eat anything. You don't go too hard at it, or you're going to regret it the rest of the day.
Yeah. So that's me getting on my pedestal there. But I just see so many people just getting out of the season too early because they have an account, they do all of these different things. But more importantly, you're not listening to what your lawn is listening to. Your soil temperature will tell you when to go, not the Instagram accounts that you follow. I know that might be like hypocritical for us to say, but like you got to know where your lawn is at. And I'm catering like to the ultra beginner new homeowner here who's never like taken care of a yard. And if you've taken care of a yard, do me a favor and share this clip with someone who is in that situation that you're trying to kind of mentor or do something like that, because it's super important. It's the light bulb moment for a lot of people. It's your yard is the only thing that matters. You shouldn't be listening to advice from someone in like halfway across the country spewing out stuff about this, that, or the other thing.
Right.
That's it. That's my 2 cents on that topic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, there's plenty of fertilizers that you can go out there and choose. But like, if you want like something to go by, like a guide, we just talked about when to mow, right? Mm-hmm. If you wait until you have to mow at least 2 to 3 times, like you're about to break the 1/3 rule, you have to mow. If you wait that long, which is probably going to be 2 to 3 weeks into your active growing season to fertilize, that's probably the time to be doing it. Mm-hmm. Like, because like if your grass is growing on its own, that's kind of its sign to say, hey, bro, I'm getting hungry. I'm going to want some num-nums here soon. And then you can start to give it to it, right? And cold temperatures, still not super, super hot. You don't want to go at it with like a biosolid fertilizer this time of year because that requires heat to make it do its things, okay? So you're going to want to find probably more of a synthetic fertilizer, a slow release fertilizer. And you can do this and you don't have to go heavy at it. Go a 1/2 pound of nitrogen at a time versus the 3/4 that some people put down with like a 4-step program. Kind of just wake it up slowly. You don't have to go heavy. I personally like to do like 6 or 7 fertilizer applications throughout the entire season versus 4 heavier ones. Just kind of slow play it more. But
you want to touch on do you want to hit on pre-emergence real quick and weed and feeds? Because you just mentioned step 1. And I realized we probably haven't even talked about that. And like you have brought up a couple good points in a previous season about weed and feeds, what people should know about them. And honestly, what probably 90% of people don't know about them.
Right. Absolutely. We're not a big fan of weed and feeds here. And pretty much anybody in the lawn care community that knows anything about grass to an extent knows that it's not that effective. It's a very marketable ploy for the average homeowner because it does more than one thing at a time. You're going to feed your lawn and you're going to kill weeds. But let's go back to the pre-emergence. So pre-emergence, we talked about the 50 to 55 degree temperature window. If you're going to apply something on your lawn, once that temperature hits 50 to 55 degrees, a pre-emergent by itself is going to be what you're going to want to apply. Prodiamine or barricade, as the Andersons call it, dithiopyr, dimension. These products come in a standalone product. And other ones, like the 4-step program, will combine it with a fertilizer. But we just got done telling you, do not fertilize your lawn until your lawn has been actively growing for probably a couple of weeks and is like happy on its own and starting to get its spring flush a little bit. If you use these weed and feed type products or a pre-emergent with a fertilizer mixed into it, now you don't want to miss your window for your pre-emergent. So now you're putting fertilizer on your lawn as soon as it hits 50 to 55 degrees, and now you're waking it up aggressively. It's now trying to eat that fertilizer when it necessarily doesn't really want to be, and then maybe it won't, and you're just going to go to waste. So that's why we don't like the weed and feed products. And then the actual weed and feed product is the step 2 of a 4-step fertilizer program. It's just not as effective because you need to have the herbicide actually stick to the leaf blade of the weeds, right? And so now you're relying on a granular fertilizer to actually stick on the weed and stay there for long enough for it to uptake it and kill it. And so most people don't know this. If you're going to use any kind of herbicide in a fertilizer, read the bag. Most of the time it's going to tell you you need to make sure the grass is wet when you apply it because you need to have this stuff stick to the leaf blade. But people don't do that, and then they don't see results, and then they go and they spray weeds later. So it's been a waste. It's not effective. People don't follow the directions. It's a marketing ploy. But you can have decent results, but you're going to have much better results with a standalone pre-emergent and using something that you can spray. Even like a hose-on sprayer for weeds in the spring is, I would say, much better than a weed and feed type granular product.
Yeah, that's a big wake-up call for, I think, a lot of people listening. And you might have heard Andrew talk about that in previous seasons. But that's a big one. Like the fact that they rely on, and when I say they, just again, I'm not calling anyone out, but it's just like, it's not common knowledge that you have to have the lawn wet for that to actually be effective. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's disappointing is really what it is. And it's like you said, a marketing ploy. It comes in a package kind of, step program type of thing. And it's just a little bit different. So just be careful of what you buy. All that stuff. We have a free spring lawn care guide, the lawnfeed.com, that you can go download. It's got our kind of, it's not tips and tricks. It's nothing like lawn hacks or anything like that, but it's kind of like what we're talking about, just more in a generalized overview fashion. So if you're listening, driving in a car, not like taking notes or anything like that, certainly go take a look at that. And obviously, we're going to be pumping out all sorts of different content for spring lawn care. This time, by the time you're listening to this, we've got plenty on our channels that you can kind of, deep dive into and binge as well. If you don't know what a pre-emergent is, many of you do because you've been listening to us very loyally and giving us 5-star reviews on all of the said platforms. Thank you very much. But if you are new here to the Lawn Feed and the Lawn Feed podcast, pre-emergence is effectively a herbicide that will kind of prevent the weed seeds underground from continuing to germinate once they have. It creates a vapor barrier over them, so it effectively you don't see them. Did you explain this already while I was getting a refill?
No, but the
okay.
vapor barrier, it just halts it right there. It says
So-
no.
Yeah, it says no.
So germination does occur, but then it stops it and it kills it. Pretty quick.
That's commonly applied right before that soil temperature hits 50 to 55 degrees, because that's when those will start germinating, along with your grass and your lawn for the spring flush, and that's when your season kicks off. So you want to make sure that that's applied and activated, watered in order for that to effectively work the way it should be. Should it be a granular, that kind of thing? Yes. So you mentioned all sorts of those: barricades, dithiopyr, all of the dimension, all of those different things. If you don't want to use a pre-emergent, just expect weeds to, like, you're going to see weeds in your lawn, right? And we can then focus more on a post-emergent. Post-emergent, I think, is probably going to be its own episode. So we're going to talk
Mhm.
about that probably later on. But a pre-emergent will stop the weeds that you cannot see, or certain weeds. I shouldn't say all of them, because that is certainly not the case. Like, it won't stop dandelions or anything like that. But it'll do kind of like the crabgrass preventer or the broadleaf weeds, those types of things for the majority of that. Lost my train of thought. Post-emergence.
Mhm.
That is an herbicide for the ones that you can see above ground. And there's different types of herbicides that for post-emergence that will target different weeds. And there's a whole bunch of different things that we can get into in a later episode. But if you see a lawn, or if you see a weed, there's an herbicide that you can purchase for it. You just have to get the right ones. You got to get the right labeled ones and make sure that you're using the right product. I like what you said, reading the label on the back of it. So
Yeah, always read. I mean, it's there for a reason. And
yeah, dude.
some of the stuff actually has some good information on it. And it's not just stuff that's going to go over your head. But you can also avoid using chemicals by using those nice stand-up weeding tools. Like, those things are not only satisfying, we've said it over and over on this channel, but they work really well. I mean, they're going to work on stuff like crabgrass, they're going to work on your dandelions, which your pre-emergence not going to stop anyways. But there's plenty of weeds out there that you can just kind of walk around, and instead of spot spraying them, you can just take this tool and plug them out. That'll go along with the next episode where we talk about the post-emergence.
Another common, thing that people ask of is, can I aerate? Can I seed? Can I do all of those types of things in the spring? And the answer is yes. Though you have to put some thought and consideration in front of it.
Planning.
Can you what's that?
Planning.
Yeah, just plan it out, right? So we'll get to seeding in a second. Can you aerate? We mentioned dethatching. You can dethatch. That's fine. You just got to wait until the green up happens. I might have an unpopular opinion here on aeration. If your lawn is if your lawn is compacted, if your soil underneath your lawn is compacted, aerate it. Don't aerate a dormant lawn. That would be bad. Kind of the same rule of thumb on waiting for an active growing season. You can aerate your lawn when your soil is compacted. It will help it out. Generally speaking, decompaction of compacted soil is a good thing. I wouldn't do it in the middle of the summer, and I wouldn't do it when it's dormant, because that's when your grass is going to be most susceptible for dormancy, and that will just do more damage than you want. Do you have any 2 cents on aeration at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to tie this in with pre-emergent as well, because
Oh, sure.
we didn't touch about pre-emergent as was going back to the planning. If you're going to do any kind of seeding, no pre-emergent, because that's going to do the same thing to the weed seeds as it's going to do to your grass seed, and your grass seed will go to waste. So are you going to use a pre-emergent, or are you going to seed? You need to decide. Talking about the core aeration, if you core aerate at the right time, it will be after the time that you put down a pre-emergent. And if you aerate the crap out of your lawn, you're going to be plugging a whole bunch of holes in there and disrupting that vapor barrier, and now making your lawn susceptible to weeds in these areas that you're poking.
That's a great point.
That's why I'm not a huge fan of aerating in the spring.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a fall thing for the average person. Obviously, there's exceptions. Super compacted lawns, sure, that's going to be the best thing you can do for it. But weeds are going to pop up. That's just going to be part of it. It's kind of like, whatever. Do you want a compacted lawn, or do you want some weeds? You can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess. So, but then I think before my camera died or whatever happened there, what I was going to say is that if you want to have fewer weeds in your lawn, the best thing you can do is have a thick stand of turf to choke out those weeds. So
No doubt.
I'm not sure if anything was said like that when I was gone for a hot second, but
no, I just teased it a little bit of just like, hey, spring seeding, okay? Because this is a thing. for cool season lawns, the majority of it is via seed, thickening bare spots, filling in bare spots, overseeding, over an existing lawn, or maybe you have a project where you need to do more of it's all bare soil and it's kind of like a partial renovation, full renovation type thing. Cool season lawns kind of work like this. There's two active growing seasons, as we've kind of referenced before, in the spring and in the fall. In cool season territory, we've touched on this in the fall, but if you're new here, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us. The best possible time to seed a cool season lawn for cool season grasses is in the fall time, late summer, early fall, right around that Labor Day period, give or take, depending on your location. Obviously, we're covering a lot of states, a lot of different climates, and a lot of elevations. So give or take, you want your seed to germinate and have enough time to establish itself and then be, free from the risk of first frost towards the fall going into winter. That seems, if you're just getting into lawn care, that might seem a little backwards. But you want it to establish, you want it to go into dormancy, and that's just kind of what the roots are kind of looking for. And then you have two full, kind of flushes of a growth cycle before like the most risky time for grass in our area, which is summer. All the hot, all of the disease, all of the humidity, all of the things that an upper Midwest, upper climate will throw at it. Spring seeding, that said, if you have any plans to thicken up your lawn, do bare spots, do any of those things, you absolutely can do a spring seeding project. You just need to set yourself up with the expectations that there are way more risks in spring than there are in fall. And those risks are largely unpredictable. You live in a state like Andrew and I, there are a lot of storms in the springtime. There are a lot of unpredictable fluctuations in spring-like and winter temperatures. Fool's spring 3 and 4 before the third and fourth winter, an April snowstorm, the risk of an overnight frost or a freeze affecting maybe brand new germination. Washouts probably are the riskiest thing. In the spring, there's a lot more risk of washouts coming into the spring. Heavy downpours, they're just uncontrollable. Like you might have a 7-day forecast that looks fairly good, and then the fronts change a little bit, and all of a sudden it's like this rapid 15-minute downpour. That happened to me last spring. It's just like it was 2 days after my seeding project, and I'm like, damn, I thought I was prepared.
Right.
And then 6 days later, I'm out there doing the same thing again. So not to mention the riskiest thing of all is if you can get through all of the things I just mentioned, you have a stressful summer ahead. And that's you're putting an infant into like middle school and expecting them to come out, with everyone else. And that's just not like, it's not advantageous. Can you do it? Yes, you can be very successful. You just have to set yourself up with the expectations that you're going to have some work to do in the fall, and it's not going to be perfect. Give yourself, I've said this time and time again, give yourself a full calendar year to have yourself be critical on yourself on whether you succeeded or failed in your goals for your lawn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for myself, like you mentioned, all those different factors, it's the swings in temperature that keeps me on my toes. Like when I spring seed, because like ideally ground temperature hits 50 to 55, that means project time, right?
Right.
That means you can start seeding because that's kind of like the start of the window. But if you do it too soon, all of a sudden you get a cold snap and your grass seed just started to germinate, and now it's got frost on it and it could kill it.
Right.
Now you wait too long, you get that early summer, kind of like we had last year. It got hot fast, and now all of a sudden the roots are just not deep enough to survive the winter heat or the summer heat. So it's kind of a
decision.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't, and that's why spring seeding's dicey.
And the thing that a lot of people don't think about is and again, this is for another episode. We have an entire guide on this. Not all grass and not all grass seed is the same. And where I'm going with this is germination times based upon the grass type that you choose are drastically different. So if you have your, run of the mill sun and shade mix, right? Sunny, sun and shade mix, shady mix, dense shade mix. Okay. That's a mix of different grass types. Most commonly, probably all of the four cool season grass types. Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, turf type tall fescue, and fine fescue. Most commonly. If you're going to get rid of one of those, you're probably just going to have three of them, right? Maybe a fine fescue is not in there. The germination times for all of those are drastically different. Perennial ryegrass will germinate in 4 to 7 days. A turf type tall fescue will germinate in 7 to 10 days. A fine fescue will be 7 to 14 days. But the kicker is on a Kentucky bluegrass in most northern climate states, in about 99% of the northern states' sod production. Meaning if you just moved into a new house and got a new lawn, it's most likely Kentucky bluegrass. If you're in a northern state or higher elevation. Kentucky bluegrass is up to 3 weeks of germination. That's the kicker to what Andrew just said. It got hot so fast between spring and summer where you need to have no risk of anything you just said. No risk of a washout, no risk of any of that for 21 days. Now, 21 days is extreme, but to get the seed embedded into the soil and like kind of established, ready for germination. Yeah, probably 14 to 21 days, 18 days, somewhere in there for this thing to actually sprout up and germinate, then to have everything go right. And then once it does germinate, not get hot super fast. There's a lot. There's a lot. Whereas it's the same risk just backwards in the fall time. If you wait too long, right now you're going up against the first frost of the year going into winter, and you might screw yourself over there too, because you've waited maybe into October or something like that, which is why we always say kind of that late summer or like late August, early September for a lot of these, after you get out of the mid 90s, hot and humid, for us, state fair weather.
Right. And, and I think this is a good time for me to share with people that I'm going to be starting the real mowing venture this spring.
Whoa!
For the first time. Yeah. So, it's exciting.
Welcome aboard.
If you guys know what real mowing is, that's the lawnmowers that they use for golf courses to mow lower, right? So I'm looking to mow under an inch with this, but not every grass type can do that. Like I have a huge old cluster of different grasses in my lawn from over the years. So I'm going to have to kill off areas in my lawn and start over, which means I'm starting from bare dirt at some point this spring. So ideally I want to do perennial ryegrass with Kentucky bluegrass. That's kind of what I want. I don't want just perennial ryegrass, but for the sake of doing this in the spring, I'm going to be doing just perennial ryegrass because, as Chris just mentioned, 4 to 7 days germination, you're going to get fast establishment, and that's going to be my best bet of getting a nice looking lawn to utilize for this entire year. And then in the fall, I think I will probably hit it with an overseed of some Kentucky bluegrass and maybe some perennial ryegrass and more if it needs it. But
honestly, dude, that sounds like a perfect plan because you get the fast establishment for perennial ryegrass, and then inevitably you're going to have bare spots. Like perennial ryegrass doesn't self-repair,
right?
To a certain extent,
which is another reason why I want bluegrass.
Yep, for sure. I made the same decision in my front yard last fall. I put some Kentucky bluegrass back in there after 2 years with solely perennial rye for that exact reason. Worm castings, all those different things. This is getting a little bit more advanced, but this is important to know as your journey continues. And then you're only going to have to, it's only going to be like 2 to 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet of overseeding for Kentucky bluegrass in the fall time. And then that's just going to get thicker and thicker and thicker as time goes on because Kentucky bluegrass does self-repair.
And usually a year later, Kentucky bluegrass really is flourishing. So
that's a sweet plan, dude.
It's
I'm
a slow
excited
play.
For you.
It's a little stepping stone to get to where I want to be eventually. But I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's just a good example, guys, of if you're going to do a project like in the spring, just be mindful of what kind of grass seed you're going to be using, because it actually matters. It really does. You can't just go, oh, Kentucky bluegrass, it's cheaper, or it says it covers more square feet, I'm just going to buy that. That's what a lot of people do. Look on the bag and it says this covers 10,000 square feet for £5. Or then they go and look at tall fescue and it says that it covers like 3,000 square feet. They're like, well, I'm going to get the Kentucky bluegrass. Well, there's a reason, because the small grass seed, you need less of it, yada, yada, yada. Just be mindful of the germination times and what grass types will, get you to where you want to be before the heat hits. So
I think this is a good time as well. We mentioned it earlier in the beginning of the show, and I just mentioned it here as well. So 2 quick things. We have a free guide, What Grass is Best for Me. If you have no idea what grass is best for you, we break down all of the different grass types for cool season grasses. So Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, turf type tall fescue, fine fescue. If you go to the lawnfeed.com, or any of our social links or anything like that, it's all on there. It's What Grass is Best for Me, and we will pair our personal recommendations to what is going to work for your local environment, that pairs with your lifestyle, that fits within your yard's needs. Because again, not all grass seed is the same. Not every grass type is the same. So we point you in the right direction to get the best results possible. And more importantly, we kind of teach you how to do that on top of that as well. So if you don't know the seeding rates, if you need some help on direction on how to do that, the process of how to prep that, we've got all of that. So go check that out, thelawnfeed.com, or the links in all of our bios at your favorite creator on the lawn feed. And go download that and ask if you have any questions. Just DM us. Can't promise we're going to get back to that, but we'll do our best, because they're filling up already, which is crazy. But we've got
throw them in the mailbag.
I was about to say, throw them in the mailbag, the Mow Time mailbag, which we've got a couple things to get going for that as well later on in the episode as well. So
yeah, let's touch on watering real quick. I think we're kind of wrapping it up here. A couple more things to touch on before we get to the mailbag.
It's probably an important one to talk about.
Yeah, watering. And this is just another thing where it's like, be patient. So many people, the grass starts growing. They're like, yeah, let's start watering. Let's just get it going. Like every other day, let's just pump the water on it. And it's going to go all year just like this. I literally wait until I look like my lawn needs a drink before I even hit it. Turn on your sprinkler system, make sure it's working, fix all the heads, make sure it's in peak form for when you need it. Okay. I'm not saying don't run the system ever. Like, turn it on, make sure it's functioning as it should be. And then once your lawn actually looks like it needs a drink, that's when you start to give it water. Don't just give it water because you think it should have water. Look for the signs, right?
And what are those?
You're going to have the change in color. You're going to have like the grayish color. You're going to have stepping on it with your foot and the grass blades aren't popping back up. You're going to have the wilted leaf blade. It's not going to look as full. And what else is there? What else am I missing here?
I mean, I think once you get more into summer, right?
Yeah.
This is more of a getting into summer thing in the hot and thick of it. I mean, you'll notice it maybe start to fight dormancy a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So as your lawns are looking right now, they're brown. Depending on where you are, they're certainly brown where we are. But when they're green, they're going to fight. They're going to fight dormancy just a little bit, right? So you brought up, I think, the most important point with watering so far is we'll touch on how much a lawn needs and all that kind of stuff. But if your lawn's not getting the proper water from your irrigation system that it should be, by way of your heads are just not getting the coverage that they should, you might as well not even have that on. Right? Because you're definitely going to notice where your lawn is not getting water, because it's going to have the same effects and the same symptoms of your lawn kind of needing water in the midsummer, but it's springtime because it's not getting the water that it needs if it's not falling from the sky. Right? So it might actually start to turn brown and might start to wilt over when the rest of your lawn is looking actually pretty damn good, because it's going through the spring flush and getting the proper moisture that it needs. So look for that kind of stuff. And I cannot stress enough, water coverage is super important. when it's not falling from the sky. And there is a magic number. And this is where it's like, it kind of depends on the lawn, kind of depends on all of this. An inch to an inch and a half per week is what your lawn and most cool season lawns should be getting, whether it be from an irrigation system or from the sky.
Yep.
And I mean, kind of a crapshoot on whether or not you're going to get it or not from the sky. But it's something just to monitor. Highly recommend looking into a system like a Ratio or a smart watering controller that can gauge this for you if you have an in-ground irrigation system. If you don't, Ratio, we're not paid by them or anything. We just had some of their products. Like Melnor, I think it's a Bumble.
Bumble? Isn't that a dating app?
That's a dating app. That's not a rain gauge.
We're going to scratch
What am I thinking of?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Ratio, there's a couple other ones on the market. Anyway, I feel like there's an app for everything now, right?
Right.
But they will link up to your hose spigot, and they will link up to your DIY irrigation, and they will kind of do the same thing, but they all connect to a weather gauge and like a local weather station near you to kind of figure out exactly how much rain you have gotten locally, at least near you, if you don't have a rain gauge at your place. You guys have some cool, you guys have something.
Yeah, we have I have a weather station. I know Vince does too. And this is actually something I got because my wife wanted it. She's kind of like a nerd when it comes to some things that she wanted to know. She wanted to know about the weather. So for her birthday one year, I actually got her it tells you wind speeds, temperatures, barometric pressure, how much rain you got. It documents it all. You can access it right on your phone from anywhere. I can be at work 10 miles away and know exactly how much rain I got that day on my lawn by looking at an app while I'm eating my lunch at work. I can just see that. So
where does it connect to? Is it just to your roof or something or what?
So I have it on top of, like where I grow my hops up the side of my deck on that
it's on your deck.
Pergola thing. So it's like, it's higher than my roof line at the bottom. So it's up high enough so that I can get fairly accurate wind speeds. I'm not too worried about the wind speeds, but if it's blocked by the wind, you're not going to get accurate wind speeds, but it needs to be out in the open where it can get accurate temperature readings and rainfall. The two things that I care about the most. And these things can actually sync directly, like Chris said, like these smart watering systems.
Water controllers, yeah.
Yeah, these smart water controllers link right to these things. And I actually have my smart water controller linked to the one in my backyard because you can choose which one you do.
Yep.
So I have it hooked up so I'm actually getting everything right from my own property. So it's more accurate. And so I actually don't really utilize my smart watering system like it's meant to be, but I take advantage more of, I'm very mindful of how much water we get because I have that availability of the weather station in my backyard. And I have a little LCD thing on the side of my refrigerator. It has like a station that I have right there too that tells you everything. So every morning I wake up, I can just look at it and go, oh, we got a half inch of rain last night. That's pretty cool. I'm not going to water today because I just kind of like set my own watering schedules, but I do it based off of how much rain we've gotten. And the other nice thing about a smart watering system is it's all controlled from your phone. You don't have to go out in the garage and go to the box and do it. You're never going to touch that box once you install it. I promise you.
You just got to make sure it's on Wi-Fi.
Yep. And so it's just really, really nice to do. And if you're on top of it like me, I just do it pretty much manually, but it just makes it so much easier and everything's wireless. So,
yeah, dude, that's awesome. Well, you just convinced me to go get one. I've been meaning to do one like all winter long, and I completely forgot like that was on both of your lists, or it was on my list or one of our lists for the Christmas thing. And like, I was just like, I never took advantage of that. Never went and got it.
And they're not terribly expensive either. I mean, you can get ones that are $300-$400, or you can get one that's $100, $150, $200. That's going to do everything you want it to. So, yeah.
If you need help figuring out how much and like the equation to figure all of this out and like how to calibrate your stuff and all of that, but I don't think this is on the lawn feed one, but I've got a free blog on this. If you go to opensmowtime.com, it's under the getting started and then the watering. So just go there. There's a couple equations there that you can kind of figure out. There's a guide if you want to go that far and get there that deeper, but a lot of resources. When in doubt, if you have a question, just reach out.
We do have a full episode on
best to help
watering from a couple seasons ago too, guys. So if you want to
True that.
dive in more
Oh
about
yeah, we
watering,
had Chris from Raccio on too.
yeah, we had him on. We've had a few episodes about watering. So dive back through the archives if you want to go more into depth about watering too. And that's kind of something that we like to hit on closer to summertime when it's more important. But we got one more little topic here before we actually dive into giving away or find out the winner of our giveaway too. We're going to determine that in just a few minutes before we dive into the mailbag questions. So just kind of freshening up your garden beds and your flower beds, it's a great time for that. And these are things that you can start to do, before your lawn too. You can get some fresh mulch in there. And, temperatures aren't as big of a deal in those areas. Obviously, you have some plants that are going to pop up and stuff. You got to be kind of mindful of that. But
you can start. Best day of the year is mulch day.
Yeah, but we could also go out there and start edging the driveway. Like you might not be able to mow, but you have some overgrown edges. Clean those up. Do what you can. I almost went out when I had 2 feet of snow everywhere, but my driveway was melting just enough around the edges that it showed like a foot of grass on each side. I almost went out and edged like a month ago just because I'm like, oh, it looks overgrown. I don't like it. But
why not?
Yeah.
Got to clean it up.
I think I threw most of my stuff in my storage unit for the winter. I now need to go swap it back out for my winter stuff. So,
dude, the organization in the garage, like, it's funny. From fall, like you get it all set to go, and then it's like -20 when it snows out. Then you got to go snow blow your stuff. Christmas happens, birthdays happen. The amount of cardboard that is in our garage is absolutely insane.
You can have a breakdancing competition out there. Break it all down and just cardboard everywhere. Everyone's spinning on their backs.
Speaking of breakdancing, did you see? I have no idea if this is true or not. The Australian breakdancer, the Olympian.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Her brother was like just arrested for some like Ponzi scheme or something like that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I
haven't heard that, but
some financial
was it like Ray Gun? Was that her name? Something like that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was like Ray Gun.
You just mentioned cardboard and breakdancing, and it made me think of that. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, God, man, what a world we live in.
Right. But yeah, I think that kind of. Is there anything else you want to touch on real quick before we dive into the mailbag?
No, just have fun, guys. Like, it's a journey. Like, don't be afraid to fail. You're going to fail, and that's okay. That's how you learn. We call those learning moments here on the Lawn Feed Podcast. Learning moments, MOWMENTS.
We've all had them.
Podcast. Yeah,
we've all had them.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, guys.
Should we open this bad boy up? Let's open this thing up.
Before we do that, let's do the giveaway. So it was just 2 episodes ago with Nick, our buddy from Australia. We decided to give away a blower and string trimmer from our friends at Ryobi. And we asked you guys, in order to participate in this, is submit a Mowtime mailbag question. So, so a bunch of you guys have submitted stuff. So we're going to spin that wheel right about now after I shuffle this up. I'm doing it on my phone.
Do you have a wheel? Because I don't.
I do.
You have a wheel.
Yeah.
Okay. I got the music.
It's spinning. Here we go. It looks like it's going to be Dan H.
Woo!
Dan H, you are our winner, and I believe, yes, you have one of the questions in our mailbag is what we're answering here in just a minute here. So
Dan H.
We will contact you personally. The best we can. I'm trying to think of. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get you contacted.
Figure that out,
and we'll get your information to get you your prize winnings from Ryobi.
Yeah, dude. Thank you to our friends over at Ryobi for participating in, I guess, this giveaway. I can't exactly remember what we were giving away because we announced that like 2 months ago, but I think it's
String
like a
trimmer
blower
and
and a strimmer. A string
Strimmer.
trimmer?
Yeah.
Strimmer.
I'm going to call it a strimmer from now on.
Yeah, that's sweet. Congratulations, Dan. We're gonna be doing a lot more with them. They like the stuff. We like that. And yeah, so stay tuned for some more fun giveaways. But let's kick off the Motown mailbag. Let's see if I remember how to dust this thing off and do that.
It's time
But
for the
look
Motown
at
mailbag.
that. Yeah.
Join us as we reach deep into the mailbag and answer your questions. If you would like to have a question answered on the Lawn Feed podcast, head to thelawnfeed.com and submit a question.
Mailbag, mailbag. It's time for the Motown mailbag.
I haven't heard that in a while. It's good. And
That
that means
is
it's lawn
just-
season again because,
We're back, boys.
we
and
got a
girls.
couple random questions over the winter, but no one's really asking lawn questions over the winter. This is when we start to get inundated with questions. So exciting stuff. We have 5 of them that we're going to hit on. We picked 5 that we thought were kind of fitting, not too long to talk about here. So
Can I say something real quick?
No.
You guys all follow us on the Instagrams and the YouTubes and the TikTokies and the Facebookies. So if you guys have a question, the best possible way to get an answer to said question is by submitting it to the Motown mailbag. You can do that by going to thelawnfeed.com and clicking on the Motown mailbag and submitting either a question via like an email form submission, or you can even put a voice memo in there, I think. Right?
Mhm.
Can you put
Yeah,
a
you can
voice
still do
memo?
that.
Okay, you can put a voice memo. And then if you have like pictures or anything like that, submit the mailbag. We'll see that. Throw us an Instagram message. We might not see that right away, but at least we'll know that you put it in there and all of those different things. And we'll get to your pictures and all of those different things as well. So that is the best way to get your question answered.
Because our inboxes are way too full this time of year to look at everything.
They're impossible. They're next near impossible to manage.
So
we
if
do our
you
best.
submit-
We have kids.
Yes.
We do our best with those. But
Submit a
Motown
question.
mailbag.
If you have pictures, put in there. I submitted pictures to the lawn feed, Instagram, whatever. Anyways, let's dive into these.
Question number 1.
Nick B from Windsor, Connecticut. When I first read this, I was like a Canadian, but no, it's Connecticut. Nick B, pre-emergent. After overseeding last fall, is it safe to use pre-emergent in the following spring? So that would be now. If so, do you recommend a split app or one full application? It's a great question.
It is a really good question. It's kind of a 50-50 question on whether people want to do it or not. The reason why this is a good question is because the grasses are so new that if you just overseed it in the fall, the root system is still kind of getting established to its full maturity, and pre-emergents have a tendency to they have tendencies to prune the roots, or they have capabilities to be root pruning, and that's a risk. If you're worried about weeds, if you're worried about all of those things, I would encourage you to kind of go about this with caution. We're not saying go ham on it. You can do a full app knowing that. However, it is better to do it in a split application at a lower rate, right before the soil temperatures hit 50 to 55 degrees in your specific area as you monitor them, get it activated, watered, and all of those different things in like 4 to 5 to 6 weeks after that with another split application. If you don't know what a split application is, that is literally taking one full application and splitting it into 2 and separating the 2 at lower quantities. So you're still getting some of the benefit. You probably will still see some weeds pop through because the distribution may not be as full or as even or as consistent as maybe in a full application. But in projects and lawns that you've just overseeded, obviously there is a risk to pruning the roots, which obviously would just put you backwards. So anything to add there?
No, I think you nailed it right on out of the park.
Right
So we'll
out
move
of the
on
park.
to our Ryobi giveaway winner, Dan
Hey,
H from
Minnesota
Victoria,
guy.
Minnesota. I don't know how far that is from you, but Minnesota's
Literally next door.
well, there you go.
Dan, I know you. You're in my inbox all the time. I don't actually know you, but
He's aware of who you are.
Hello. Yeah,
Reverse
we're
stalking
inbox
happening
buddies.
here.
We're inbox buddies.
So he's got a question about soil testing. He says, besides the NPK of a soil test, is there anything else I should be focusing on to get the best soil for my baby grass to grow? Thank you. And to that, I say pH. Because
Yeah.
pH is a huge thing. It doesn't matter what you throw at your lawn. It's not going to do anything with it if the pH is really not between 6 and 7. Like more like 6.2 to 7, I think is a sweet spot. But you start getting down to like 5.5 and your lawn is not going to be happy with anything you throw at it. It gets above 7, same thing. So if it gets high, you're going to be putting sulfur on your lawn in some form. If it gets low, you're going to be doing lime. So pH is something to really, really focus on other than your standard macros NPK. That's what I would say.
The pH basically measures the acidity and alkalinity in your soil.
Bingo.
And you want that as neutral as possible, which if you're first tuning into this, getting it down to the beginner level, because I was once here and it was like rocket science to me. You want it in between that 6.5 and 7. That is the neutral. That is where the nutrients or the plant will accept the most nutrients or be the most optimal to accept the most nutrients. They might not necessarily do that, but be prime in the optimal condition to do that. If it's leaning towards acidic or if it's leaning towards alkaline, there are certain nutrients that will be impacted by that, or the plant's, there will be nutrients that will be impacted by the plant's ability to uptake that particular nutrient to get the grass to grow. Yay!
We did it.
We did it. If this is the first time you're hearing about a soil test, this probably should have been a topic that we talked about tonight. But I think we maybe talked about it before. I can't remember.
I think we can definitely touch on it real quick.
Just real quick. If you have never done a soil test, or if this is the first time you're hearing about a soil test, and you have a question on, hey, guys, what fertilizer should I apply to my lawn in X state? We don't know the answer to that. And the only way you're going to know the answer to that is by doing a soil test. And there are certain places you can get a soil test. You can get them really all over the place. If you're looking for a beginner-friendly one, the RX Soil was there. I don't know if they're still in existence or not. There's My Soil. There is all of the like Spectrum Analytic. Vince, you, me have done Spectrum Analytic before. That's a good one. You can send off. Waypoint. If all of this is rocket science, do this. Google university extensions near me and find one that offers a soil test. And here's why I might recommend that over maybe what the other ones are. Soil tests can sometimes be very difficult to read for a beginner or a newbie, and especially if you've never done it before. It's a chart, it's data, it's all of these different things, and sometimes it's not nearly as cut and dry. University extensions and the students running, in those programs are very eager to have a conversation with a live human being about this particular topic. They are very passionate about it, and they will tell you exactly the direction in a very non-biased way of what is going to be best for your lawn. But that said, it'll measure your pH. It'll measure your CEC. It'll measure your macronutrient levels, micronutrient levels, and everything that you will need at that current moment in time, and going to give you a synopsis of where to go. It's kind of like running a diagnostic on your engine, figuring out what's wrong with it.
And going hand in hand with we said that it tells you exactly what your lawn needs. It's going to also say what it doesn't need.
Correct.
Because if you have a lot of people around here have high phosphorus, which is that middle number on the fertilizer bag, the NPK. Okay. And a lot of people have high phosphorus, yet they continue to put it on their lawn because they don't know they have high phosphorus. And then this is something that takes a long time for it to clear out of your soil by not putting it on there for years. So it'll also tell you that, like, it'll tell you what fertilizers you need, what stuff you don't, and follow that. And then, a lot of us do them like every year, but we do it because we teach and we make videos and content about it. Every 3 years is really all you need. Like, you don't need to do this every year. It's overkill. It's just too much. It's not going to change that much from year to year. Okay. It's a slow game. It's not going to change overnight. So don't kill yourself by doing that over and over and over. I mean, you're going to see soil testing stuff starting on social media, starting probably now.
Probably already have, yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to be bombarded with it. Just know you don't have to do that every year. Okay. Look at your test from a year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever it was, and just run with that. Use those same test results and just use fertilizer based off of that. But anyways, back to the mailbag questions. I think that answers that one for our giveaway winner, Dan H. Let's move on to Michael T. from Jacksonville, Arkansas, in the transition
Not
zone.
Florida. Not where Limp Bizkit is from. The other Jacksonville.
Is that where he's from? Huh? I didn't know that. I learned something.
Limp Bizkit? Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Okay.
I think. Pretty sure.
Did it all for the nookie. Thank you, gents, for your interesting podcast and always useful content and materials. Thank you for the kind words. After listening to you guys for a while now, I finally need to seek your counsel while I'm getting more leaning into my lawn and how to make it better. I have a mixed bag for my lawn for roughly 1,850 square feet. Morning shade, afternoon sun, yard faces west. In the summer, it goes full sun around 2 p.m. until sundown. It's a mix of zoysia, some Bermuda, wild, I think, and even some patches of St. Augustine that I think have crept in, maybe from birds. I would like this to be the gem of the neighborhood, as we all want to see for you. I have a company that does treatments on a schedule, but I'm thinking about stopping that to do my own treatments. I know I have to do some leveling in a number of places, and I believe that is a fall project. I usually keep my front lawn mowed around 1.5 inches, and once I get this better suited, I want to go down further, maybe 1 inch or even 3/4 of an inch if I can get all the species of grass, all one species of grass. So here's my question for you. Should I keep things looking decent for this season, then plan a full lawn renovation this fall? Or is there something I could do before spring hits that might help? Can I plan a late winter renovation, or am I too late already? I don't want to damage things. If I could do a before spring project, I'd be willing. Thanks, guys, for the insight and suggestions. And for this, we reached out to our buddy TJ.
Why don't you take a breather, homeboy? That's a long question. I
know. I'm like,
I almost just tipped over my TV.
I think I need to get my eyes checked too.
Yeah, no, that's good. So Michael T from Jacksonville, Arkansas, with the transition zone. So it's all warm season stuff. So we are not that. So we reached out to our good friend TJ, the.lawn.dad. If you have a lawn that is in the warm season zone or transition zone of warm season grasses, go follow him. He is a great asset for everything Bermuda and warm season grasses. But this is literally word for word his answer. So if it's wrong, blame him. Just kidding. Don't. We're fully responsible for providing this information.
It seems legit.
We are outsourcing it because we do not know the answer. Anytime you are working with a warm season grass, any renovation is best suited for the spring and summer. So opposite of what we've been telling you all for cool season grass. There's a hump in the middle, like a bell curve, for warm season grasses. You want to hit the beginning of that when it's actively growing. And that can fill in any renovation. That includes lawn leveling. Sounds like zoysia will be the best option since it seems like it hits about that 4+ hours of sun. A concoction that will kill everything but zoysia will be recognition and what is it?
Fusilade.
Fusilade. Small text. Fusilade 2. Or kill off the areas with glyphosate. And if you know of a strain of zoysia, if you know you have the strain of zoysia, resod the areas that have been affected. I said that right.
Yeah.
Resod the areas that have been affected. Period. Would be mowing in about a month. You could also plug these zoysia areas into the newly killed areas to help the zoysia spread.
So I think all said and done, it says it likes the heat. That's when you do renovations. Late spring, probably early summer would be money for this. And zoysia might be a great option for you. And so you can kill it with the recognition and Fusilade 2 combination, or you can, if you know where there's different grasses, you can spot spray that with glyphosate. And then you can either sod it or plug it with the other zoysia. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, dude. Does make sense. Yeah. If you have a warm season question, ask it. We know warm season people. We're just catered to cool season turf. That's totally cool. So love the fact that you listen. Thank you for listening. And love the fact that we can answer it sort of for you, even though it's not our answer. Andrew, Nathan H. from Bel Air is back. Bel Air,
He's
Maryland.
back.
He's
Home
back.
to Bel Air.
Oh, man, that was funny.
He even says
I'll never
it here.
forget that episode.
No,
Love
I
the
know.
off-season. Love the off-season content. Keep it up. P.S. I laughed at the reference to my last question in the podcast. I'm the Bel Air Fresh Prince guy. LOL. If you have not listened to that, I think that was one of our Christmas episodes, wasn't it? The last time we did a
It
giveaway,
was,
I think.
yeah, it was probably midwinter for sure.
Just a classic case of thinking that this was literally the Bel Air, and was like, Vince, this is by you. Is that like the Bel Air? Like Fresh Prince of Bel Air? And then like halfway through, like we're talking about this, we're like, guys, that was in California. Like totally different. Not even close.
But we were like, well,
So anyway.
West Philadelphia is close to Maryland, so maybe
Yeah,
he
West
just moved.
Philadelphia, born and raised. That's you, right, Vince? It's
Yeah.
like, nope. No, yeah, we're a bunch of idiots. So
Anyways,
it's like
we know
Nathan's-
more about grass than geography. So
Couldn't recite the whole song, but don't know the geography. All right, Nathan, Bel Air, Maryland. My question today is someone who has done DIY in my yard for a few seasons and has had a company work on my yard for those few seasons. I am curious on your thoughts on the advantages and disadvantages to both price, quality, results, time, effort, etc. I have my pros and cons list, but if I'm being honest, I go back and forth, and I am curious on what you guys have to say. Thanks again, and keep up the great content. The classic like company. I have my thoughts. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I know a handful of people that have used lawn services near me and other places, and I feel like there's just always complaints and just stuff to complain about constantly. But I think that like they're just not treating the weeds in my lawn. Well, like these guys don't show up to your lawn every single day and look at it like you do. They don't see the weeds pop up. The perk of doing it yourself is you can get right on it and start taking care of it. These guys don't necessarily maybe soil test sometimes. I'm sure the good ones do, and they'll cater your lawn service to that. It's going to be pricier to have these guys come and do it most likely for you. But at the same time, if you're not somebody that wants to go out and do that, or you don't want to take the time to learn how to use a fertilizer spreader or a backpack sprayer, if you don't have the time to do it, then maybe that's for you. But anybody that's listening to this podcast, most likely you are going to agree that doing it the DIY way is the way to go, because you have the control. You're gaining the knowledge by listening to our podcast and doing your other research that you're doing. So that's where I stand. I understand why people do it. And there's definitely pros to it. But I feel like there's a lot of cons to it as well. I don't think you're going to get as good of results necessarily.
Yeah, I think the analogy of, you're the only person that has your yard, right? And these people are doing this for a job, and you're kind of trusting them to have the same passion about it as you are. They're doing it most likely per paycheck. A lot of these people, depending on the company that you get, are not in it for the long haul. They're like college kids, just looking for a paycheck, just doing it for a summer job. The passion is just not there. Now, we are friends and we have a lot of connections of people just in the line of work that we do that own and run fleets of a lot of these who are the good guys and do care about all of these things. Now, most of those are mowing fleets. I think the question that he is wondering about is companies who fertilize
Right.
and companies who apply. Yeah, companies who apply product, which is what Andrew was referring to. I would venture to guess, complete dart at the wall, that 91% of these people do not soil test. Your True Greens, by the way, True Green partnered with the PGA, or the PGA partnered with True Green, and I heard an ad about this. Literally, I'm going to paraphrase this, but it said, you too could have a PGA style lawn for as low as $300 for the whole season.
It'll turn green. We'll put nitrogen on it, but
I don't know how they can physically say that.
No.
Anyway, so if you're going to take anything from this, you get what you pay for, and a lot of it is saving you time, but it's not necessarily giving you the results that you want because of everything Andrew just mentioned, but like they're just guessing. They're doing what we did first starting into it, is just going to the store. They're applying the same fertilizer to all of their lawns if they don't soil test. And every time I've looked at the programs of these, just like, because they give them to you, I think we're required to tell you what they put in. It's not, in most cases, anywhere near the amount of nitrogen you need or any of the other stuff of what you actually need, or maybe an over application, to Andrew's point, of the things that you don't need from earlier.
Well, and the other thing is you lose control over some stuff. Like if you're going to do a fall overseed, like you want to make sure you're not putting down, like they might go out and spray weeds a week before that, and now you're like, well, I have to wait 4 weeks after this has been applied before I can seed. So now, like, you're screwed. Like, you have to be able to communicate with them and say, hey, this is my plan. Do not spray any of this stuff on my lawn. And that's definitely doable. But they make mistakes. You know, you hear the nightmares about them going to the wrong house, or, you know, spraying the wrong stuff on the wrong property, or going back to back days and applying to the same property. Now they're over applying. And, you know, when we were just down in South Carolina, we talked to somebody who's a homeowner who actually has tall fescue grass in the transition zone, but is surrounded by people with Bermuda. And he hired a lawn service, and they treated his lawn in the middle of the summer like it was Bermuda. And in the middle of the summer, you dump nitrogen on Bermuda because it likes it. Like, you hit it hard, like a freaking pound of it, like once a month or something like that. Something crazy. It just chews through it. You do that to a stressed out tall fescue down in that zone, you were going to fry the crap out of it so fast. And that's what they did to it, because they treated it like every other lawn. It was just another lawn. It's an entirely different ecosystem. And so I'm sure there's good, there's good ones, there's bad ones. You lose the control, and mistakes.
You
want
to know what? I'm going to give one a shout out. If you are anywhere near, I don't even know if he services Bel Air. I don't know how close things are over there. DTL. I know they're in Vince's neck of the wood. I'm going to
DTL Total Turf.
I realize
Lancaster.
I am not pronouncing this right. I have been pronouncing it Lanchester County. That is not right.
That's right.
There's not an H. Lancaster County, PA. Give them a call. They have absolutely proven themselves to be one of the best guys out there. And if they don't service you, they will probably know someone who can. So give them a call.
And we had Dan on the podcast talking about fertilizers, and
he is the man.
So.
He's the man, and actually cares.
There's really good people out there, but
you just got to find them.
It's a gamble.
Yeah. So
anyways, I think that answers that good enough.
Hopefully, Nathan, that answers your question. Very long-winded, but it's super important because I think a lot of people do it. And for the love of God, don't go with True Green because no one's getting a PGA style lawn for as low as $300 for the entire year. You might as well go get Sunday.
And to that, Nathan, I say, yo home to Bel Air to fertilize your own lawn.
Yeah, buddy. All right.
All right.
Jonathan D. from New York, New York. Starter Fertilizer. Hey guys, love the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I wanted your opinion on starter fertilizers. With all of the money invested in other fertilizers, herbicides, pre-emergence, post-emergence, seed, etc. Good point. Do you think it's really necessary to purchase additional for something like a starter fertilizer for an overseed? P.S. You guys should add some dad hats to your shop. Noted. Dad hats. Thank you for your time. Jonathan from New York. I don't know if you're actually from New York City or not. It just says New York.
I think
it's a great question. It's a great question. You hit on it a little bit earlier. So I'll let you recap it.
No, I think it goes back to the soil testing and knowing what's in your soil because, like I said, a lot of people around me high in phosphorus. And if you look at a starter fertilizer, that middle number is super high. That's basically what it's looking for. It's going to help get the germination taken off and going and giving the plant what it needs to do well. But if you have a soil test and you have enough phosphorus in your soil, you don't need to add more. It's not going to really do anything. So I most of the time don't, where I'm located, I like 1608 is like my go-to like season long fertilizer. That's kind of like my sweet spot. 2-to-1 ratio of nitrogen to potassium and no phosphorus. And that's what I use when I overseed most of the time. Sometimes I'll find something very, very low phosphorus. But if your soil has it, don't waste your time on it. Keep giving it what your lawn wants. It's got enough in the soil to do what it needs to do to get that new grass going.
Yeah, and this might have been DeMay who was talking about this, Ryan DeMay. But I definitely want to. I'm certainly going to paraphrase what he was saying. They were bringing it up too, and Vince has talked about this before too, where it's you needed to germinate in order to pick it up, right? And a lot of places you can't necessarily apply phosphorus unless you're doing seeding or sodding projects. Like it's physically, you can't do it. The label says it. That's law. So again, a reason to read the label and what your local restrictions are on that. But like not necessarily doing the starter at the time of seeding, but shortly after germination or shortly just before germination, so it's not just sitting there. I can't remember. This was so long ago. I can't remember exactly the words that were said, but it's something along those lines. But then again, like there's the other side of the coin where now it's like, okay, cool. Now that it's recently germinated, now we're going out there with a fertilizer spreader. There couldn't be anything worse to do that. Right. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in terms of that. I think I agree with you, Andrew. It's just I don't necessarily think you need a ton of it. They need it. It's all dependent on your local needs in the soil. I think that's a great point. I think they did a lot of digging into this exact topic. There's a podcast on the Grass Factor. I cannot remember what episode it was. Yeah, can't remember. It's actually really good points brought up, but that gets more into the advanced stuff. But you're interested, that's all there.
So to answer your question, John, if you have a soil test and you have enough phosphorus in your soil, that's really all a starter fertilizer is, different than a standard fertilizer, is that it has high phosphorus. So if you don't need it, don't waste your time on it. That's what I say.
And we'll get on those dad hats. That's a good idea. Maybe we'll and I'd have a feeling we might have a few of those coming around here. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I think that pretty much covers it. That's the 5 that we're going to talk about. Guys, keep them coming. We would love to answer your questions on every episode here going forward during the season. So if you have the questions, submit them. Like we said, we're not going to always see your DMs on social media. And we would like to if you have a question, a lot of other people have the same question. So let's answer it together here and help a lot of people out at the same time. So,
Yeah, dude.
Cool.
Before we wrap, go check out thelawnfeed.com to go check out some amazing lawn apparel. Woo! And go to submit your questions to the Motown Mailbag. Elevate your lawn shirts, sweatshirts, and more. Use promo code BRAD15. Check out for 15% off your entire order. And shout out to our friend at Twin City Seed. Lawn Feed 10% off any online order there. Go check them out at twincityseed.com. On behalf of the entire Lawn Feed crew, thank you for joining us for another amazing episode. Happy spring, and stay safe out there. Good luck in this week's venture of parenthood. And as always, guys, we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
See you guys.